You've heard of the First Amendment, but do you know what the Founding Fathers actually meant by free speech? The Second Amendment is one of the most debated laws in America today, but was it really about self-defense? And the Third Amendment might seem outdated, but it actually reveals the founders' deep fears of government overreach. Today we're diving into the key clauses of the first three amendments, why they were created, what the founders really intended, and how their meanings have changed over time. The Founding Fathers had just fought a war against British rule, which tightly controlled speech, press, and religion. There were several key events that influenced the First Amendment. Free speech and press was impacted as British rulers jailed critics and shut down newspapers that criticized the monarchy. When it came to religion, many founders saw the dangers of government-endorsed religion because they had witnessed firsthand how religious control by the government led to oppression, discrimination, and conflict in both Europe and the American colonies. Protests were suppressed as British soldiers attacked, arrested, and even killed colonists who spoke out against the monarchy's taxes and laws. The First Amendment included 5 key clauses. The Establishment Clause prevents the government from creating an official religion, like the Church of England. Thomas Jefferson argued for a wall of separation between church and state as the founders wanted religious freedom, not government-sponsored faith. The Free Exercise Clause protects your right to practice religion freely, as long as it doesn't break general laws. This was inspired by colonial laws forcing people to attend and fund churches they didn't believe in. The Free Speech Clause protects freedom of speech. James Madison wanted to ensure citizens could criticize their government without fear. Alexander Hamilton and John Adams worried about total free speech leading to chaos but agreed censorship was worse. However, not all speech was protected. Threats, defamation, and inciting violence were still illegal. Freedom of the Press Clause prevents the government from banning or censoring newspapers, books, or pamphlets. It was inspired by the John Peter Zenger trial in 1735, where a journalist was jailed for criticizing a British governor. Right to Assemble and Petition Clause ensured that citizens could protest without government interference and was inspired by violent crackdowns on colonial protests like the Boston Massacre. Ultimately, the First Amendment was designed to protect citizens from government oppression, not to give unlimited rights. And it stops the government from punishing speech, but private businesses can still set their own rules, such as social media bans. Prior to the Revolutionary War, the British attempted to disarm the colonies and influence the creation of the Second Amendment. At Lexington and Concord in 1775, British troops tried to seize colonial weapons, ultimately sparking the war. After the war, the founders feared a standing army could lead to tyranny, so they wanted citizens to be able to defend themselves. The Second Amendment included 2 key clauses. The Militia Clause was created because the founders saw militias as a defense against tyranny, not just personal protection. James Madison and George Mason believed that armed citizens were the best defense against government overreach. The Right to Bear Arms Clause prevented infringement on the people's right to keep and bear arms. Patrick Henry feared a powerful government could strip away citizens' weapons. However, Federalists like Hamilton argued for a strong military, but agreed armed militias were a balance of power. Ultimately, the Second Amendment was originally about militias, but the founders expected gun laws to evolve over time. The Supreme Court ruled in 2008 that the Second Amendment applies to individuals, not just militias. However, state laws can still regulate guns, and many states require gun registration and ban carrying weapons in public. Amendment 3. British troops occupied homes without consent, taking food and resources. The Quartering Acts of 1765 and 1774 forced colonists to house and supply soldiers. British troops could take over homes, eat family food, and stay as long as needed. Colonists saw this as government overreach and an invasion of privacy. The Third Amendment contained only 1 key clause. The No Quartering Clause stated that no soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner. James Madison and Thomas Jefferson saw quartering of soldiers as a violation of personal freedom, and looked upon this amendment as a safeguard against military control over civilians. Anti-Federalists like Patrick Henry feared a standing army would become a tool for oppression. Ultimately, the Third Amendment wasn't just about soldiers, it was about limiting government power in private life. It set the stage for privacy rights that are still debated today and has been cited in modern Supreme Court cases regarding legal protections on privacy and government surveillance. The Founding Fathers wrote the first 3 amendments to protect citizens from government abuse, not to create unlimited freedoms. Understanding what they actually meant helps you know your rights, and what they don't cover. Which amendment surprised you the most? What don't you agree with? Let us know in the comments. Want more breakdowns of history's biggest moments? Subscribe and turn on notifications.